Okay, let's get going. Chaim mitzvahs tashbisu according to Shitas Rashi, not like the Minchas Chinuch according to the Efsher of Shmuel Rozovsky and Bumtzia. That's basically what came out. It's a small side in the time of mitzvah, but listen, it's good enough for me, right? Chaim. All right. I am quite unprepared for this. Today was a lot more hectic than I thought it would be, but you know, sometimes. Who knows? I meant I'm quite unprepared for you. That not, definitely. But all right, so I'm hopefully, Mitzvah Hashem should come out good. As we do every year, this is now, I guess, our fourth annual Haggadah shiur, third time here. 4 years ago was on Zoom for all of us. My upstairs, my house, and all of you in your own homes. That was our first Haggadah shiur. I think we did even a few then. But here, this is our third time doing it. And I try to stick to a certain game plan of trying to accomplish two things. Number one, trying to accomplish giving just an overall sense of the Seder. People, that's really why it started back in COVID, is because a lot of us were making our own Sederim for the first time, and to give people a sense of what the structure of the Seder is. People get lost. They think it's just, I don't know what, Putin, and they don't know really what's going on. So to give that sense, but it's important every year to kind of chazer over the overall sense of structure of the Haggadah, of where things are going, where things are coming from, why are we doing this now. And also to give, hopefully to give some of you some nice things to be able to say over, impress the shiur, impress your wife, impress whoever else you're trying to impress. So we'll try to once again accomplish both things. We always begin with the Simoni Seder. We do Kaddish Orcha. It's a big deal. Karpas Yachats Magid Roch. So you all know it. We all go through it every year. We're very makbid to say it. Usually it's the first time screaming at your kids, telling them, "Come on, let's get together. Let's say the Simoni Seder." What's so important about the Simoni Seder? And start off with the same thing I begin with every year. I believe I've said this, that it should remind you of something else. Simoni Seder. It should remind you of Simna Milsi. It's that idea of Simna Milsi on Rosh Hashanah, that we have Simonim that are significant. Pesach has that same element, because the idea is it is a Rosh Hashanah in a certain sense. It's important to recognize. Chodesh Nisan is a Rosh Hashanah, and Pesach is really that's the Yachol Me'Rosh Chodesh. The first day of Nisan starts the new year for Klal Yisrael. I talked about it on Shabbos a bunch of times recently, how there was Ma'aser Bereishis, and then we kind of stepped in and took the reins and took over, which is what Rosh Chodesh Nisan is. It's a very exclusive club. Those who are Zayich to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, but it is a Rosh Hashanah to a certain extent. Whoever comes late is going to be video evidence of it. So it is a Rosh Hashanah to a certain extent, and therefore we start off with the same idea of Simna Milsi. To start off on that foot, based on the drasha from yesterday, there should be a new meaning to this entire thing of what we're doing here with the Simoni Seder. What are we doing? We're creating basically Haggadah articulation. Permeates every part of the night, and it's every part of the night is not on other times of the year we do stuff. We maybe have a bracha, we maybe have the L'Shem Yichuds that we say, but mitzvahs are things we do generally. And here on Pesach, everything we're going to do tonight has to have an amira to it. We got to talk about it. And therefore, we start off right away. We set the tone. We're going to talk about. We're going to lay out the game plan. We're going to tell you, kids, family. We're going to tell you exactly what's going to happen, because we have to talk about everything that happens tonight. The Haggadah Levincha is not just a mitzvah in a vacuum. It's not just a one time. Just do it. The Haggadah Levincha, say this and do it. As we said, Zohar the Rambam, and I plan on expanding on this a little more tonight. The Zohar the Rambam takes that Haggadah Levincha and just explodes it and makes it just take over everything. It takes over Pesach Matzah Mor like the Rambam. That's Lo Yotze Dechovasu, Yotze Yechiv Pesach Matzah Mor. Haggadah is everything tonight, and therefore, no better way to set the tone. And like I said, give your keys to the game. Kaddish Orchatz Karpas Yachatz. This is what's going to happen. This is how we're going to win the game tonight, and that's how we begin. So we move on to Kaddish. Now I've also pointed out in the past that Kiddush always on Friday night. It's fascinating when you think about it. We always say on Friday night, Zeich L'Tzias Mitzrayim. Why? The one day that should not be Zeich L'Tzias Mitzrayim should be Shabbos. Shabbos is Zeich L'Maisa Bereshis. Why is it Zeich L'Tzias Mitzrayim? Every other Yom Tov, fine. Yitzias Mitzrayim is where it's at. It's the beginning of the story. Why is Shabbos, that's about Sheishis Bereshis, that's about creation, why is Shabbos Zeicher Yitzias Mitzrayim? And based on the ideas I was just expressing, that Shabbos becomes Zeich L'Tzias Mitzrayim because Zeich L'Tzias Mitzrayim was a new world order. It began a whole new time frame, starting with Klal Yisrael. You're in control now. That's the 10 Makkos, or the 10 Spheres. We've talked about a lot in Tanya shiur. You've got 10 little levels. If you want to say it in a more yeshivish way, there are Asar Mamoros. Asar Mamoros and Asar Spheres go together. 10 things Rebbeinu Shalom said when he created the world. All those 10 things are peeled back through the Makkos. We're revealing different levels of Ma'aser Bereishis because we're recreating. It's a recreation of the world. Yitzias Mitzrayim. So therefore, even Ma'aser Bereishis becomes Zeich L'Tzias Mitzrayim. That's how we express it. Every Friday night it is Zeich L'Tzias Mitzrayim. Now, but something new hit me this year that to me was pretty mind blowing. So I was thinking about these Rambams with Zocher, Yom Shabbos, and how it compares the Zacharta, Zocher, Yom Mitzrayim to Kiddush on Shabbos. So I started looking at the Psukim. I meant to bring a Chumash, but I forgot. But okay, hopefully I won't need it. If you look in the Torah, as mentioned yesterday, there are 2 parshas in the Torah that really tell us Kiddush. 2 times. The Aseret Dibros is twice, and you'd think it's twice exactly the same thing, except it's not. The other Aseret Dibros are, come on, word for word the same thing. Shabbos is different. The way it's brought down in Parshas Yisro, and that's our first time the Aseret Dibros, and the way it's in Parshas Vachanan by the second Aseret Dibros is different. The key, the most famous difference that many people know is Zocher versus Shomer. In Parshas Yisro it says Zocher, remember Shabbos, which is Kiddush. In Parshas Vachanan it says Shomer, which is Loisa says. And we make occasion, we say Kosh Yeshnu B'Schir, Yeshnu B'Shmira. I mentioned it, Kosh Yeshnu B'Shmir, Yeshnu B'Schir. That's how women become Mechuyev in Kiddush, because they're part of Shmira Shabbos, they're part of Zocher. The Veschanan replaces the Zocher, the Kiddush of Parshas Yisro. Now, but what happened to the Zocher? Where is it? Will the Zocher please stand up of Parshas Veschanan? Where's Shomer Service Shabbos L'Kadsha? Where's Zocher over there? Did it just disappear on us? It did not. If you look in the Psukim of Parshas Veschanan, what happens is Parshas Yisro, we know. Every Shabbos you're going to say it. Zocher Service Shabbos L'Kadsha, Shabbos L'Kadsha, right? That's when the Kiddush, you're waiting, you're coming, hurry up, right? That's what we do every week. Veschanan, Shomer, Service, Shabbos, L'Kadsha. The Psukim are almost the same, but then at the end it says, V'zacharta ke'eved Yisrael in Mitzrayim. Remember, you were an Eved in Mitzrayim in Parshas Veschanan. What's V'zacharta? What in the world is V'zacharta ke'eved Yisrael in Mitzrayim doing in that Aseret Dibros? What's it doing in the Parsha of Kiddush? It's replacing the Zocher Service Shabbos L'Kadsha of Yisro. Yisro is I guess the first step. Zocher Service Shabbos L'Kadsha. Shabbos by itself without Mitzrayim. Veschanon is the second step. The Zocher Tzemach Shabbos L'Kadsha is replaced with the Zacharta Ke'eved Yisrael in Mitzrayim. Remember that you were a slave in Mitzrayim. That's what we say every Friday night. Zeich L'Tzias Mitzrayim. It's the most mefurish Mokar in the Torah. It's basically what I'm saying is that it's a mefurish pasuk in the Torah that we have to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim in Kiddush. It's part of the Kiddush of Parshas Veschanan. It's a mistake to say Veschanan is not Kiddush. Veschanan is Shomer, is only guarded, protected Shabbos. No, Veschanan is also Kiddush. Just the Zocher Shabbos L'Kadsha is replaced with the Zacharta Ke'eved Yisrael in Mitzrayim, and it's beautiful. So we say we always have to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim in Kiddush, and that should make us realize how important the Kiddush. Now I'm not talking about Haggadah yet, the Haggadah Kiddush. That's the second Kiddush. But even the first Kiddush, how central that is on Leil Seder, saying that Zeich L'Tzias Mitzrayim, that takes on a whole new meaning than the rest of the year. Okay, then we have Orchatz Karpas. Now I'll just mention, because it's been negated to what we're talking about on Shabbos a lot, that there is a well-known machlekes, right? How much you're supposed to eat for karpas, right? Everyone's like, oh yeah, they're gonna dig in. Every kid's like, suddenly that boiled potato looks amazing. They want to touch a boiled potato the rest of the year. But then you're like, no. You can't let it eat. You got to eat just a little bit. And by the way, you should know that like many shitas, really me'ikar adin, a kizayas, This is the killer. People are crazy with his. So kazayas really make a din is a kazayas shows manedo. I mean, go to your shuk, Machne Yehuda, find your medium-sized zayas. That's it. That's a kazayas. So if you're going to be makbid on karpas eating less than a kazayas, you're eating a very small amount. Now, there's just an ironic discrepancy at the Seder. It's like you start off karpas, like no, you got to take that tiny potato. Then it comes to matzah, and it's like here's your kazayas, enjoy. And it's 60 times the size of that little potato you had earlier. And it's like, come on, what? This seems a little cheap. But okay, that is really, if you're going to be makbid, that is the proper way to do it. But point is that there are. It's well known that the Shitas Shulchan Aruch is to eat less than a kazayas. The reason why he said this is even though his Messiah from the Rambam Paskin that you should eat a kazayas, fakir. Shulchan Aruch says, I don't know why the Rambam said that. Why should we eat a kazayas? It's not a din achila. There's not like matzah that you have to eat matzah. Mora, you got to eat mora. It's a mitzvah. There's no mitzvah to eat karpas. We do it. The kid should ask. It's like a minhag. There's no din achila to it. So why in the world did the Rambam decide to eat more than a kazayas? He doesn't understand the Beis Yosef. He says, fakert, you should be eating less than the kazayas because we should be chayshes, you might have to make a bracha acharona if you're getting more than a kazayas. Meaning, there's a machlaika, should you be making a bracha acharona on karpas? Some shita say yeah. Some shita say no, we don't, because we dafka have to wait for mora. We need the bar pihadama to be might see us in mora. That's the machlaikas rishonim. We won't get into the lemdus of that right now. But the point is that some rishonim are saying, even though we do not pass this way halacha l'maisa, you should not make a bar nefashos, even if you do it a kazayas of karpas. But since there are some Rishonim who hold you should be making a bar nefashos, the Beis Yosef paskins better eat less than a kazayas. That's where I think most people. My father did not eat less than a kazayas. My share they do eat more than a kazayas. So the shaila is okay. So what I don't want to get to. What does it have to do with anything that we're talking about on Shabbos? Because the Mishnah Berurah raises the following issue. The Shulchan Aruch is the one who's saying eat less than a kazayas, dafka, but the Shulchan Aruch says you're washing Tilas Yadayim on it. Why washing Tilas Yadayim? It says that the Shulchan Aruch paskin that by pas it's a suffix, by bread if you eat less than a kazayas it's a suffix. If you eat less than a kazayas it's a suffix if you're supposed to do Tilas Yadayim. The Mishnah Berurah holds it by bread it's a suffix. For sure for us nowadays by vegetables, where most of us are not even makbid anyway. There's the Magen Avraham that says not to be makbid to wash for wet vegetables. So it's kosher for vegetables. It says you don't really need to wash for less than the kazayas. So in Mele Frek the Mishnah Berurah, I don't understand. This is in Bir Halacha. It's in Taf Ayin Gimel. The Frek the Bir Halacha, I don't understand why is the Shulchan Aruch saying eat less than the kazayas and wash on your karpas. He should not hold that way. If pas is a suffix, you should wash on it. So sveka, you should not be washing for a less than a kazayas of hadama. And he brings the Rashbats. He says that, and Taka the Rashbat said he says not like this. He says not like the Shulchan Aruch. He says fakir more than a kazayas because he wants you to wash. We're supposed to be washing orchatz. Don't make a joke out of this washing. You should eat more than a kazayas. So it should be a license maybe. He finishes off tzorech in the din of Mishnah Berurah. But that should be a license to possibly be more than a kazayas. Fakir go not like the Shulchan Aruch. Dafki more than a kazayas of karpas because Yehuda loves it. He's loving it. Dafki more than a kazayas because you washed. Why are you washing? But what's the teretz for the Mishnah Berurah? If the Mishnah Berurah is saying, anyway, maker then we paskin wait for more for bar nefashos. Even the Shulchan Aruch knows that. Even if someone does eat more than a kazayas, you wait. You don't make a bar nefashos. So it's a suffix. You make her then we paskin don't make a bar nefashos. So eat more than a kazayas and do the netilas yadayim. But what's talking the teretz? The Mishnah Berurah is saying you don't wash the rest of the year. You're never supposed to wash for less than the kazayas of hadama. So what is the difference here? And this leads into a beautiful and yesodistic word from the Netziv. This to me is one of the classic yesodis at the Sefer at the Seder. The Sefer, the Netziv's Haggadah, though, is I mentioned in the past is one of the yesodis. If you're going to buy any Haggadahs, it's up there. But the Netziv, it's a long piece that he analyzes psukim and reads into psukim. But he basically says that our avodah at the Seder. I mentioned in the past at the Seder we're time travelers. That's really what we are at the Seder. We are traveling through time. We're back in Mitzrayim. We're in the Beis Hamikdash. We're in the future. We're L'shana Haba B'Yushalayim. We're all over the place. We are supposed to experience Leil Seder as time travel. That is what it's supposed to be. Pshuto K'mashmoy. That's how you're supposed to experience it. You're very involved in Messiah and to the next generation because that encapsulates our experience on the night. So says the Netziv, we are experiencing Leil Seder as if we're in the Beis HaMikdash. We're sitting there at the time of the Beis HaMikdash when the Iker Hadin, you had to wash. You were sitting there, you had to wash for this thing. You were being oichel al taras hakodesh. You were eating the stuff. The Iker Hadin, you had to wash your hands for the vegetables that had water. There was no difference between vegetables and bread. So since bread, we paskin misafek, you do wash on. And even though vegetables for us nowadays, you were not washed for less than the kazayis, even laham machmirim. But since you're experiencing life as if you're back in the Beis HaMikdash, you treat vegetables like they're bread. That's what they did then. So a wet vegetable is no different than a piece of bread. And you're going to wash the same way you'd wash on a piece of bread less than the kazayis. You wash on a vegetable less than the kazayis. That is the experience of the night. That's how you're meant to be living. That's part of your time travel. It's not just back to Mitzrayim. It's back to the Zman HaMikdash. He says a kittel we wear, he says because it's mavor that in the Zman HaMikdash, a kittel was what they wore for their Mechoshev feast. When they went to a big feast, that was their beged, a linen white robe. That was what the Chashuvim wore at the time of the Beis HaMikdash. That's what the Netziv says. So that's why we wear kittel on Leil Seder in order to dress as he imagines people in the time of the Beis HaMikdash dress. The Yachatz, I know we split the middle matzah. I saw a beautiful vart, a beautiful idea, a new idea from in the Haggadah from Melech Biderman. He says that he brings from I forget who, forgetting who he brings from, but he says the idea of a yachatz. It's from a Hasidic Rebbe. This is not. It says the idea of yachatz is, imagine you have someone who you love, who you're going to be taking leaving for a long time, right? What do? You take a ring, you break it in half to me, half to you, and this is how we remember each other, and one day we'll get back together, and this will be a symbolic of our love, our ava for each other, and we'll always be able to remember each other. I have this half, you have that half. He says that's what we're doing in Matzah. We're showing it's a night that celebrates Ula, but it's also a night that celebrates Golus. It's about a Haschola, a Manishtana Halayla Hazeh, which we'll get to with the Sfas Emes, that it's the night. We're celebrating the night because it's the start of a story. It's the start of a story that has good times and has bad times. It's Golus and Ula all in one. Like I said, time travelers. We're everywhere all at once, in the good and we're in the bad. And therefore, by breaking the matzah, we represent that idea by taking half and giving the other half to the Rebbeinu Shalom, so to speak. I'll repeat something I said in the Shabbos Haggadah drasha of the COVID year. That Mefarshim say that the yachatz is that the yachatz in matzah is Keneged Yitzchak. We know Kohen Levi Yisrael is the classic pshat your kids are going to come home with, but another pshat, why not? Whenever we have three, we can also go Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, and they do. They say the middle matzah is Keneged Yitzchak. What does that do with Yitzchak? Huh? Minhag HaGra in terms of. Oh, I don't know what they talk about. Yeah. And so we've talked about a lot of chinuch this year. The chinuch is clear in his Seder Haggadah. The yachatz is not part of it. He didn't have yachatz. Yachatz is something that's developed over the years. But anyway, okay. Getting back to it, it says Keneged Yitzchak. Why? The beautiful pshat brought down. The Torah says, "Ve'eresh Moshe," pasuk the second parsha of Yetzias Mitzrayim, Parshas Ve'era, says the Torah Ve'era is the gematria 208. Why is Ve'era 208? Why is Ve'era 208? It is 208. It's a fact. What is 208 Keneged? It's Keneged Yitzchak. Because Gulas Mitzrayim was B'schus Yitzchak. Gulas Mitzrayim was B'schus Yitzchak. Who ever heard of such a thing? The Torah is L'chera coming from a medrash that's only found in one place by his father, the Rosh. The Rosh brought this medrash. Says the Rosh, it's a Chazal that's Yedua, but the Rosh has a different version of it. Chazal say La'asad L'avoy. The Rebbeinu Shalom is going to come to the Avos and say, what am I supposed to do? I want to be paid to them, but they've been chayter. Avram's going to say, forget it. Let's go. There's nothing to do. Yaakov's going to say, they've been chayter, there's nothing I can do. Yitzchak comes to the Rebbeinu Shalom and says, come on, let's stop playing games, this big deal with these chatoim. How much were they chayter already? They're sleeping half the time, they're eating, how much chatoim could they have already done? I have a lot of zechosim, you have a lot of zechosim, Rebbeinu Shalom. We'll both take it half and half, we'll do a good deal. I'll take half of it from you, and that's how we're zeicha to Geula, and we say Avinu Ata, Yitzchak Avinu Ata. That's the Chazal. The Rosh has a version of this Chazal that this happened Bisman, Gulas Mitzrayim. At the time Mitzrayim, the Rebbeinu Shalom came and said, I told them 400 years. But it's been 210, and if I leave them in one more minute, they're going to, it's going to be all over. I got to get them out now. How do I get them out? Avram said, I'm done. Yaakov said, I got nothing for you. Yitzchak says the same thing. Yitzchak says, come on, what's the big deal already? How much have they been chayta? They're slaves for it. Come on. Let's deal it. You and I will take it. No problem. Half and half. We'll split it. We split the middle matzah down the middle. This was Yitzchak to show his deal with the Rebbeinu Shalom. Take half. Rebbeinu Shalom, you take half. We're going to save half for later. That's your half. We're going to take half upon ourselves, like Yitzchak Avinu, and we are going to bring the Geula. Where is this Merumas? What do we say? Yitzchak has another name. What's Yitzchak's other name? Anyone know what Yitzchak's other name is? It's very similar. Yitzchak, right? Yitzchak is also Yitzchak, at the sin of Pasuk in Tehillim. What is the difference? What is the gematria? What is the difference between sin and tzaddik? What he actually took? 210. He lost 210 from his name in order to get Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim after 210 years. He says, I'll trade in my name Yitzchak. I'll do Yitzchak instead. The Medrash is brought in the Rush. Where is the Rush? I gotta remember. Huh?
Where's the Rush? See this Medrash Gersa.
Okay. Yeah.
Where's the Rush?
Where is the Rush get it from? I'm not even sure. I don't know if there's any makor for the Rush that the Rush brings it. We'll look at it again. It could be. I'm pulling this out. As I said, it was a long day, and I meant to look through these notes again. But where is the Rush and where does he get it from? We'll look back and I'll go back to it. I understand. Yeah, it's obviously based on the Chazal by Gula Asida, but I don't know where does it say it about. Anyway, okay, getting back to it. Let's pull it back in. So what do we say? We say Ushvus al Yitzchak. When do we say Ushvus al Yitzchak? When is Shvus al Yitzchak? At a bris milah. At a bris milah you say Shvus al Yitzchak. That's the pasuk that you read. Bris milah, b'damai chayi, dam pesach, dam milah. It's connected. How it's connected? Think about it. We'll figure it out together. But there's obviously a connection between the Demai Chayi of the Bris Milah, the Demai Chayi. We say the Everlife the rest of Demai Chayi, the Bris also. The Demai Chayi is Dam Pesach, Dam Milah, and we give Yitzchak back his name when we're talking about a Bris Milah, about Yitzchak. By the way, there's another thing that the Gematria Elio Hanavi they say is Gematria because Elio is the Arba Bonim is Elio because Elio is Gematria 52. Ben is Gematria 52. 52 times 4. Arba Bonim is the Gematria of Yitzchak 208. 4 times Elio is 208. Elio is of course the time traveler. He's the ultimate time traveler. If you want to find, if there's somebody who's that guy in our history, in our it has the legacy of being that it's Elio Hanavi, which is why he's so often popping in and out of the Seder. But okay, let's rein it back in. Magid. What do I want to say first about Magid? It's a good question. I wanted to lead it actually from something else. Sorry, pull it back to Yachatz 1 second. There's a teretz I saw, I think from the Ksam Sofer. But I forget who. What did they say? Why do we do Yachatz? What's this idea? Well, there's a kasha. What are you doing Yachatz? You need lechem mishnah. You need shalom to make a bracha. Why are we breaking a matzah in half not to have a lechem mishnah? Well, you have the other two, but I understand. But why are we're taking the second one and breaking in half? We're leaving one in reserve. We have a guy on deck. We've got the Yisrael on deck. Why are we taking the Levi that's supposed to be the second one and breaking it in half? So the idea as follows, and we spoke about this actually in shiur. There's an idea that part of the Leil Seder, we're so much involved in the story and re-experiencing it, that we experience it as we experience it as something that we are actually going through. And just as Klal Yisrael at the time of Yisrael started off, they weren't Yisrael yet. They didn't have the same mitzvahs. They didn't have that identity as Klal Yisrael. They were Mitzrayim. They were slaves to Egypt. So we start off showing we're slaves to the point where we don't have lechem mishnah. We're not putting on lechem shalom. We're like the Mitzrayim. We eat half a bread at a time, no problem. By the time we get to Motzi Matzah, we've left Mitzrayim. Now we got to have a shalom. So we pull in the reserve, the Yisrael, the backup, and we're ready. We're ready for a lechem mishnah. But to show we're starting off as goyim, kaviyachal obviously, but we're starting off as goyim. We break the middle matzah to show no. We don't need a shalom. We use this word to just tell for the guys who will be a chazara, but I'll be moist something because I spoke to Moshe Friedman and found the marmakum that he said where he got it from. But I said over a word like this. He asked, "By your motzeh," it says in the Torah, 7 days you shouldn't have chametz in your house. By your motzeh. Yet, like many Rishonim, Ba'irobim Motzei gets pulled to Erev Pesach Chatzos, Midiraisa. You're over by Erev Motzei, Erev Pesach already at Chatzos, if you have it. But why did the Torah say 7 days then, if that's true? Say 7.5 days, 7.25 days. Why say 7 days? And there's steers in Rishonim. Rishonim seem to hold, it gets pulled all the way up to Chatzos, like the Shita, but yet they say 7 days. Why are they saying 7 days? And where it was, what I said this over from Moshe and Friedman, but I didn't have the Marmokum for it yet, but I called them and got it. It's a Meiri Psachim. The Meiri says that in those days there were 4 different ways to count the calendar. Some counted from, like the most of the world does, we do from midnight. You start a new day, is when you started at midnight. Some started from sunrise, a very logical time to start. Some, he says, the astrologers, which were present in Mitzrayim, was the head of, they counted from midday. Midday was when they held, when the sun was b'taikfa, that's when they held was the climax of the day, the end, and then it started a new day from there when it started its way down. And Klal Yisrael was mechadish to start from the sunset. But it says that when we were in Mitzrayim counted their new day from midday. So we start off saying that we're reliving it. We're starting off, we were still in Mitzrayim, we were slaves. So we start off from midday as the new day. Yeah, Tesvav Nisan started at Chatzos Hayoim of that year, of that day. By the time we were out, by the time Pesach is over, we're Yidden already. We got to go until Shkia at the end of the last day. So it turns out it's 7.25 days, but it's 7 days. It's 7 calendar days with this chap that we flip from being Mitzrayim to not counting with Mitzrayim. So it's 7 calendar days with an extra 6 hours. So now, what do we call? We're about to start Magid. For many Mefarshim ask this kasha. Why don't we have a bracha on Magid? It's a mitzvah midiraisa. V'gata levincha be'ermahu leimer. Why every mitzvah you're supposed to make a bracha. So make a bracha over Las Yosem. Why are we waiting? Let's say the bracha is the end of Magid. We ever make a bracha at the end of Magid. Let's say that's the bracha on the mitzvah. But why are we doing it afterwards? We should be doing it like any mitzvah. Over Las Yosem, before you do the mitzvah, make the bracha. Because we were still in Mitzrayim at that time. We were still experiencing shibud. We're supposed to be reliving it. We can't make the bracha yet. Till we go out, till we say hallow spontaneously, we say a hallow, then we can make a bracha. We can't make a bracha now. We're still stuck in the shibud. It says it wouldn't make sense to make such a bracha. The whole idea is to re-experience the Haggadah. Now, I will just say that from the aside of the drasha yesterday, Rameir Simcha, that it's a kiddush. Haggadah is a kiddush. The kasha is a stupid question. It's like asking, before we make Kiddush Friday night, make a bracha on Kiddush. It's a mitzvah. Make a bracha. No, the bracha is, the mitzvah is making the bracha. That is the mitzvah. So the mitzvah is, we say, Magid, we pick up our curse, we say, Manishtan, Lazav, Mais Blazer Yeshua, Arbabonim, Tchilo of Devazara, boom, 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 we go through the whole thing, and then we make Kiddush at the end. That's what it is. It's just a very long Kiddush. So the whole kasha doesn't make sense. Why do we make a bracha before? The whole tzura of the mitzvah is to get to the bracha at the end of it. It's not v'gat levincha, the Rambam is telling you. It's zocher esyavishay tzasmer atzrayim. Zocher esyavish Shabbos l'katra. It is a mitzvah tzechira. So of course your mitzvah ends in a bracha. It's not. It's just the kasha doesn't make any sense if you understand like Rameir Simcha that Magid is a second kiddush that we're making. Okay, holach ma'anya. Every year, I'll say this word, and continue to say it, Abiyas Gel Tzedek, but to me, it's the quintessential, it's Nikar Divrei Emes, what Holach Ma'ani is, and it's probably the quintessential Seder word. It's just, it's a very beautiful word from the Baal Nesivos on Holach Ma'ani. Let's see if I can remember it. Like I said, I say it every year. You think I'd be able to remember it. But okay. He says, Lamaisa asked the classic questions. First of all, why is this in Aramaic? Why? This was added later, clearly. And that's clear in the Rambam. They added it later. It's Aramaic. It came at a later point in time. What's this called? Dichtin Yesev Yechel? It seems very disingenuous. Like, what are really we're trying to say? There's no way out of that we're not actually inviting people. Certainly the way we live nowadays, we're not actually inviting people nowadays. But what are we even trying to express? Like, what's the point of Kodich and Yesev Yechel? And what's the Hashata Hochel L'Shana Bo Ba'ari Yisrael? what is this the start of Magid? Like, what does this have to really do with anything? And the final question he asks is, why are we calling it Lechem Oini? At this time. Later, we're going to talk about Matzazu. It's Al Shem Shenigalu. It was a beautiful expression of having to run out of Mitzrayim. Here we're saying, oh, this is terrible, disgusting, poor man's bread. Why do we want to start off Magid that way? So he says like this. It says, imagine, put yourself in the shoes of a child in Bavel. The first year you just left Eretz Yisrael. Everything is. The tragedies are unspeakable. It's like the year after. It's like the year after the Holocaust. The liberation. Right? You're at the first seder after that. So here you are. You're at the first. Yeah, I guess it's even worse than that. No, it's not the worst liberation. Yeah, you whatever. You're it's worse than. You're back in Bavel. Yeah. And you're sitting there, and you're like, of course, we're not going to have Pesach this year. That's just silly. Like, yeah, we're going to celebrate leaving Mitzrayim when we're back in Bavel. There was the amount of people who were killed, the way they were killed, horrifically, worse than even than Mitzrayim. We're right back where we were. He says that the Mashal, he says it's the guy who makes a Suda Soidah for getting out of jail, gets right back in, whatever, does the same thing again. He's back in jail. He makes a Suda Soidah on whatever it is the day he got out the first time. It's just, it's stupid. We look for excuses for parties, sure, but it just doesn't make any sense. Why are you making a party for the day you got out of jail the first time when you're right back in it? That is the kid's question. It's an amazing question. What are you doing? That's what Halach was written as a response to that. That's why I'm not saying it's in Aramaic. Because it was written in Bavel, in Gos Bavel, as a response to that excellent question. And we're saying, you know what? You're right. We're saying this Lechem Oini, you're absolutely right. We're eating the same Lechem Oini, the same, that our parents ate in Mitzrayim. We're eating now in Bavel. We're experiencing the same thing. No, you're absolutely 100%. But you know why we're doing this? We're going to make a party. We're going to throw a party of all parties. Everyone should come and celebrate with us because Yetzias Mitzrayim meant more to us than just leaving Mitzrayim. It wasn't about freedom. It wasn't about getting out of slavery. It was about a bris ben habesarim. It was about a emunah. It was about a story that we are now Am Yisrael. We're the children of Avram. We carry that legacy, and that legacy goes up and down, and that's what Hashem told him. 4 goals, and we're going to go through it, and it's going to be rough, but we're going to go through it. But there is an end to the story, and that's what Mitzrayim meant to us. Yetzias Mitzrayim meant more than just the getting out of Mitzrayim. It meant the start of a story that's going to lead to Mashiach, and that's exactly what we're telling you, because we have Emunah that we're here, but we're going to be in Eretz Yisrael, and that's why we're celebrating. That's the teretz, because that Yetzirah was the Yetzirah that promised us an ultimate Yetzirah and an ultimate Gula, and that's the response. What? Because she was telling the Maisa was understanding that people couldn't be honest at that time. But actually, guess put it back in. It didn't last that long that he took it out. But okay, Manashtana, they will start with Derech Shaila Tshuva. Derech Shaila Tshuva comes from the Haggadah Levincha. The mitzvahs of Torah, like we said, we could say the Rambam from now until tomorrow about Zohar. It comes from that. The Haggadah Levincha. The Haggadah Levincha teaches us that includes in it any time the Torah talks about talking to children. We include in the Haggadah Levincha. So there are other places in the Torah it says, usually in the context of Pesach, close at least, your kid will ask you. So we get from that the way we're supposed to talk to our children is through childhood tshuva. And it really is true. It's like the best chinuch advice you could get. Talk to your children through questions and answers. Don't talk to them. They don't listen to drashas. They don't get it. Trust me, it's not going to work giving them drashas. They work, but when you give them shiur tshuva, they're very engaged. If you ask them good questions, you get them engaged asking their questions, they're into it. They're going to remember it. Maybe they won't get every nuance of the point, but they will be into it if you can get it. Their shiur tshuva is a great eitzah to get children talking, and it's a beautiful way to open V'yigatel Levincha. Ma'aseh, the Rambam says, continuing these Rambams as talked about yesterday, says, okay, so the Rambam said the mitzvah is Zachar Shem Mitzrayim. Mitzvah deal labanim. It's a mitzvah to tell your children. Even if they didn't ask, that's the sheni delishol. Shenemar V'yigatel Levincha. Now, if you die to ben Ogrimando, and a good chinuch advice, this is what we're telling you with the Arba Banim, you got to know your children. You got to be able to teach them if you die to. You can't expect every kid to do the same thing. Ketzah. Ima katino tipish. So the Rambam is going to tell you this kid is very small or not so bright. So we're talking about a kid who's going to be the basic mitzvah. What would you think the basic mitzvah? What are you supposed to tell this kid? You tell him, Bini, my son. Now, Agav, this word in Rambam, think of it, this is a halacha sefer. The Rambam is saying b'ni is part of it. The Chinuch says, by the way, "V'yigat levincha lav dafka your son." Let it be your son. Let it be anyone. Why does it have to be your son? It just says it because that's the normal derech. The Rambam sounds like he's saying no. You can be mekayim it even if you don't have bonim. But b'ni is part of it. You're supposed to express the fact that you're talking to your children, and you tell them. Kulanu yinuvadim k'may shivcha zu oy k'may eved zeh. Understand what the Rambam is saying? The Rambam is saying what you're supposed to say to your son. If you were to think, if I were to ask you, you're talking to the basic level kid, what do you want to tell him about Yetzias Mitzrayim? And you think you'd tell him about, all the 10 miracles, and you'd sing some songs about some good stories. None of that in the Rambam. The Rambam says you tell him, we were slaves. The Rambam is pointing to a slave that's in his house. How do you think the Rambam treated his slaves? Try to imagine how the Rambam treated. Let's say the Rambam had slaves. How did he treat them? What? They don't know the language he's speaking. The Rambam Hilchos Avodim, in the last halacha in Hilchos Avodim says, even though it's mutter la'avod be'eved knani b'farach, you're allowed to be oved at eved knani b'farach, harshly. Afal pi shadin kach, even though that's the din, the midas chasidus is, and the derech of chachma, that a person should be a rachman, roidef tzedek, he should not be machbed oila avodah, and chachamim are shining by nice 11, we call tafsha, whatever food they ate, they gave to their avodah. Meaning, anyone who's a chacham, you treat a slave right. Treat a slave like a mensch, you treat him with dignity, you treat him with tzedek. That's what the Rambam said. And yet the Rambam is saying, you want to tell a kid, the Ikar Yisrael, you point, Eved Zeh, Shivcha Zeh, is what you say, we were slaves like this, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu's paid us. That seems like the worst. I mean, the kid's like, I understand, Gloria's watching television right now. I want to be that. What? That's so bad. She's got her room live in, and that's the Eved Zur Shivcha Zu that you're going to tell me. No, you want to show me a picture. You would think you'd show a picture of somebody who's like in chains, dragging something. That's what you want. If you want to give a kid a powerful message. No, the Rambam's like, don't do that. You are going to the message of Yetzias Mitzrayim will be mislabeled for this kid. It's a very, very powerful thought. It's not just a small thing. If you tell kids that Yetzias Mitzrayim is about the fact that life was terrible in Mitzrayim and now we're free to do whatever we want, they will completely miss the point. And by the way, we all grew up completely missing the point. We think freedom is about doing whatever we want and going on vacation and being lazy and just sitting all day doing nothing. That's what we think. That's what Yetzias Mitzrayim was about, right? I'm just telling you, that's not what Yetzias Mitzrayim was about. It was at a pigeon of the Rebbeinu Shalom to make something about your life. Because the bottom line is Eved Zeh, Shivcha Zeh, I could be as nice as I want to him. They are extremely limited in what they can do with their lives. They cannot be very productive with their lives. They're slaves. They're stuck here. They need this. Whether it's slaves because something good. Whether it's slaves because of the fact that they just don't have opportunities for a better lifestyle, or they're slaves because they've actually been born into slavery and this is the law of the land. Whatever it is, the point is they don't have opportunities to really make something of themselves. What Yetzias Mitzrayim was for us was an opportunity to make something for ourselves. Hashem, we built the Mishkan. It's one of the most amazing things I ever built. We ate mon. Productivity doesn't mean making money. Productivity doesn't mean building a building necessarily. They build great buildings in Mitzrayim. It means being able to do something real in life. Being an Eved Hashem is the most important thing you're going to do in your life. We believe that. We have a hard time, we have a hard time really relating to it, and that's part of the point of this Rambam. The bottom line is, it's one of the hardest things. I think in our generation, or right now, to say the rule of Ein ben Chayr Elam Yisha Oseh B'Torah is one of the most hardest things to seriously say. Ein ben Chayr Elam Yisha Oseh B'Torah. It's geschmack, maybe. It gives us purpose in life. Ben Chayr, because we completely missed the point. Obviously, and I'm not excusing myself from this. We missed the point of what Chayr is supposed to be about. So that's what the Rambam is telling you. The bigger thing you have to tell a kid is that is what Chayr is about. It's Shivcha Zu versus you. That's what it is. It's not about the guy in chains. Chains getting destroyed in Mitzrayim. Okay. Move on. Cover some a couple more things here. We're only at the beginning of Maggid, but okay, we'll quickly go through it. Manishtana halayla hazeh. The Sfas Emes very famously says it's Manishtana halayla hazeh. Normally we celebrate mitzvahs during the day. That's when we do mitzvahs. Not sukkah actually. It's a bad example. Lulav. Hanukkah is not a great example either, but okay, fine. Generally, mitzvahs are done during the day. Why is Seder? Why is Seder? I'll think of a lot of good examples. If you look in the Mishnah, if you look at the Mishnah that lists mitzvahs and shabiyot, mitzvahs shabalayla, it's weighted a lot more. Things are supposed to be. Okay, but anyway, the point is, why are we starting off there? Why by Yetzias Mitzrayim we're doing it at night? And the answer the Sfas Emes gives is because again, it's the start of something. We start things at night.
Well, we started by day because we can't have chametz from Chatzos.
No, but that was kind of their night. That's when their night started. Okay. And so Manishtana Halayla is saying because it started the night. There's another pshat I saw. There's another pshat from the Orach Chaim, based on the Orach Chaim. The Orach Chaim says, Laila Kiyoyim Yoir, I think is the pasuk in Tehillim. That a night will shine like a day. He says that's the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Yetzias Mitzrayim again. It was like a new world order, and it was just the night. The night was shined like a day. He says, and therefore that's why we treat the night as if it's a day, and we celebrate Yetzias Mitzrayim that day.
Fire
Says,
at night.
what?
Because you have fire at night.
It's a fire.
And then have fire at day.
At that night, that's later on. It says that. It doesn't say that night. That's what the Chaim says. Laila Kiyam Yar, it was like a day. The Goyim points out. He says Manishtan Halayla Zeh is bad diktuk. It should be Manishtan Halayla Hazois. Laila is Nekeva. Zeh is Zohar. It should be Laila Hazois. It says it's Zeh because that's our question. Manishtan Halayla Zeh. Why are we treating Laila like a Zeh? Why are we treating Laila like a Yoim? A Yoim is a Zohar. Why are we treating it like a Yoim? Because Laila Kiyam Yar, the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim, was like a Laila. Okay, we go from Manishtana to Avodim Yinu L'Far Mitzrayim. Remember. This is one of the next halachas in the Rambam. The Rambam says, "Maskil b'gnusum Mitzrayim b'shevach." It's one of the things you have to do. You cannot just talk about Yetzias Mitzrayim. You have to talk about the bad. You have to talk about things that were detrimental, that were degrading to us. Maskil b'gnus. So you got to start avodim hayim. You have to start with that. That's Rav's halacha. That's Rav Shita in the Gemara. Avodim l'far Mitzrayim, because you have to start with gnus and shvach. Why? Why do you have to start with gnus? Why can't you just say all the pasuk says "Ba'avurza Hashem li b'tzeis Mitzrayim v'gat l'vincha"? Why do you have to start with gnus? Why do you have to be maskil gnus Mitzrayim b'shevach? What is mitzvah zocher? Mitzvah zocher is kiddush. What do we do in kiddush? We're mavdil. That's what kiddush is. The Rambam's there. Kiddush is havdalah. Havdalah and kiddush go together because when we want to be mekadesh something, we have to distinguish between what's this versus this. Zocher requires distinguishing between one thing and another thing. So in order to mekayim mitzvah zocher, it's got to be matzah mitzvah b'shevach. You have to show what are we trying to get to. So we have to start off. We have to start off with the gnus. So we start with avodim l'far Mitzrayim. We go into the shevach. We go through and we say even in Shitas Rav that it's again to reiterate from past years. This is the first opinion of Masnus Sumsai Meshevach. This is the physical. This is the focus on the physical geula, the physical goals and the physical geula that we were avodim and we were taken out. And in that we talk about that even in then there's a kolamar b'lasaper, and we go through some putim about the union of kolamar b'lasaper. We talk about the mitzvah of Lamant Tiskus, you know, it says Koli Mechecha, because that's a mitzvah on the physical geula, and so on and so forth. Then when we come to the Arba Bonim, we're basically redoing the Manishtana. We're asking 4 questions now, but what we're doing is leading into Shmuel's Haggadah. Again, Rav's Haggadah is Avodim and Yinu V'Yotzienu, is the physical gula. Shmuel's Haggadah is going to be Mitchila Oivdei Avar Zor HaHoivosenu, the Achshav Kavona Makom HaAvodosa. The Maslu B'Gnos from Messiah B'Shevach is going to be the spiritual Gnos versus the spiritual Shvach. In order to lead into that, we have to ask 4 new questions. We asked 4 questions for Rav. Now we're going to ask 4 questions for Shmuel. So we got the 4 Bonim. We're asking 4 questions in the Torah. These are 4 different places in the Torah that it talks about an exchange between a father and a son. All 4 of them are there in the Torah. I'm not going to go through it now. I've gone through it in past years. Look it up. Do a little work on it. It's very fascinating where we picked out different points of it. Now, here's something I've asked this in past years. We say 4 kashas for Shmuel's Haggadah. Why don't we go straight into Shmuel's Haggadah? Why do we ask 4 questions and then be mafsik with Yochel Meresh Chodesh? Right? It should be 4 questions. If we went from Anashtana straight into Avodah Mayinu, we should go straight from the 4 questions of the 4 sons into Mitchila of Avodah Zarah. We should go, just like we went straight into Rav's, we go straight into Shmuel, but we don't do that. We have this piyut in the middle of Yachol Mirish Chodesh. I don't have a great answer to this. I maybe have a little bit better answer this year than in past years. What is Yachol Mirish Chodesh? What is the Havamina of Yachol Mirish Chodesh? I think one thing I have to understand also, very much based on a lot of what I was talking about yesterday, Vigat Levincha is not a mitzvah in a vacuum. As I talked about, Zohar kind of expands Vigat Levincha into a much bigger mitzvah than just what it says in the pasuk. Now, how do people talk about what is the mitzvah of Yetzias Mitzrayim? It's a mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. Where does that expression come from? Where do we get that from? Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. It says, no, Haggadah is Haggadah. Sipur is a different word. Why would we call it Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim if the mitzvah is Vigat Levincha? Some Balkari should know. Why do we call it the mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim if the mitzvah is Vigat Levincha? Call it Haggadah Yetzias Mitzrayim. Why is it Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim? Lamanta, because it says, the pasuk at the beginning of Parshas Bo says, Lamanta Saper, Uben Michal, it's just Sasat Mitzrayim. But the problem is that's not the mitzvah of Haggadah. That's not the mitzvah though. What? Okay. But what you have is you have Sipur at the beginning of Boy, you have Haggadah at the end of Boy. What we're saying is the idea is to express that what Zohar does for us is say the entire parsha is part of the mitzvah. It's not just this Vigat Levincha B'Yom Leimor. From Lamat to Saper until Vigat Levincha, it's all. That's what we're supposed to be talking about. Lamat to Saper becomes part of that mitzvah. The whole parsha becomes part of it. Now, what is the first date? No, the first important date in the parsha of Parshas Bo. We don't know when Arba and Choshech happened. Mishfarshim say maybe. We don't know. There's one date, the first date in what? Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the first date. So Yachol Mirish Chodesh. If the beginning of Parshas Bo, the Matasaper Bazavincha is where our mitzvah comes from, starts from, and it goes until Vigat Levincha. So it makes sense. We should start Haggadah on Mirish Chodesh. It doesn't say, by the way, Yachol Birish Chodesh. Doesn't say you can be kind mitzvahs Haggadah on Rosh Chodesh. It's Mirish Chodesh. Maybe you should start on Rosh Chodesh, start telling the story, call the kids together, say, this happened today, call them together and say the tzoyin was taken today, tell the whole story from the beginning, so that we say, no, we got to know the point is, though, is what I'm trying to get to here, is that possibly, the reason why we're bringing Yachol Mirish Chodesh here is because Rav's Haggadah is going to go all the way back to Terach. Rav's Haggadah is going back real far. It's digging deep in terms of how far the story expands. Shmuel is okay. It's not that big of a stretch. Rav is a much bigger stretch. So the point is that Yachol Mirish Chodesh already starts to expand the mitzvah. We already start to see how Haggadah does not just about the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's much bigger than that. It's Lamata Sabos Mitzrayim. So we've already. The point is we are slowly through our Haggadah expanding the mitzvah. We start off with a very slow, local idea of Avodim Nufarim. We move on from there. Now we're into Yachol Mirish Chodesh, starting off with already earlier from that, and Rav's going to take it all the way back now to Terach. Rav's going to be the next step. So maybe we wanted to stick it in here to grow the idea of how far back it goes. But Rav then comes. He says, we do that, then we say the Hisha Amda. We don't say any of the Torah on that. It's on Pastor's Shurim. I can post them. You can get them for me. And then we have to do the drasha of Aram Yaviravi. Who shiur just Aram Yaviravi? It's one of the. Again, this drives me nuts every year. I still don't have a great shot. But why in the world do we have to do this? This shiur just Aram Yaviravi. And the best thing I can tell you right now is that Zohar is Zohar is essentially DNA. That's what it is. So when you have a mitzvah, why does Zohar become such a big mitzvah? Why does it expand so much? Much more than Haggadah. Because it's not just about a moment; it's about everything that went into that moment. It's a very potent energy ball of a moment that has everything that's gone into it, all the information that's gone into it until now. That's what makes it a memory. Is that it's memory is not just about I remember that story. Memory is about like DNA basically, and what goes into DNA? Years of information, thousands of years, right, of information go into it, and that's why when we talk about Zohar, we put all that information into our Lo Seder all the way back to Terach. Because it's all part of the story. Similarly, how does that work? Is you have one little piece of data On a DNA, you can take it, right? And it's got so much information contained in it. So how do you express that idea? By darshan psukim. So you go to Rami Ovid. It's 4 psukim. Is the entire story of the Yetzias Mitzrayim is Rami Ovid. We want to show you not only does Zachar say that all the entire story until now gets included into tonight, but a word can contain in it a tremendous amount of information. It's a very important lesson for articulation, for chinuch. You can give over amounts of information in one word if you do it properly. So we want to darshan the story out of Rami Ovid Avi to show how each word, this parsha, it's Rami Ovid Avi is in Parshas Kisavai. It's 4 psukim that have the entire story, everything, all the midrashim with Yetzias Mitzrayim are all contained in these 4 psukim. All right, just to get through to the end of Magid. We darshan Rami Ovid Avi. We go through all the drashas. This is usually when most people fall asleep. They're on the couch. They don't really understand what we're doing. So if I don't understand it, great. I can't really blame them. But you shouldn't be on the couch. It's part of the chiyuv of Yigatul V'Nichan. Women got to do it also. Make sure. Oh, you can be on the couch. I mean, I don't mean actually on the couch. You can do whatever you want on the couch. But
Check that. Check that.
Check that. Exactly. Okay, we go from that into talking about Kriyas Yamsuf and the miracles. It's based on the drasha Dayenu. Then we say Gamliel. I talked about Gamliel yesterday. What is the chiyuv loyatzedei chalash machlekes rishonim? Is the chiyuv Pesach Matzamor? Is it Haggadah?
Really, the kid, why didn't we do it in the beginning just to make sure we did everybody involved?
Well, all these things are loyatzedei chalash. Even Naresh Avinavi is loyatzedei chalash. Gamliel's adding even this is loyatzedei chalash.
Right. So let's start with the stuff that, especially we know we have to do Mount Sinai, do all that, right?
Oh.
But start with the stuff that even this, you also start with that.
Which is one other thing very quickly that I'll finish out here. But I want a few thoughts I'll finish off with, but I'm getting there. We go into Hallel. Now, you can ask a big question here. If from there Simcha, if this Torah I'm saying is correct that Magid is a Kiddush, how do we put Hallel in the middle? How do we stick 2 prakim of Hallel? Do your story, fine. We can stick with Gamliel because the Rambam saying that's part of Haggadah. What does Hallel have to do with anything? How does Hallel get stuck in it? Look in the Rambam and say from mitzvahs, and the Rambam says the mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. This is important to know. Everyone thinks that it's totally that it's a derabbanan. If you ask people what is Hallel say to derabbanan deraisa, but of course it's derabbanan. The Rambam says mitzvah kufnan zayin l'sapir Yetzias Mitzrayim b'lachmisha subnisam b'tchilas halayla b'chol masha Yosef. Anyone who's moises u'b'hoides lo yisborach, it's Yosef Tov. The Rambam is saying, the point is the Rambam is not saying this Sefer Mitzvahs for nothing. He's saying Haidah to the Rebbeinu Shalom, saying Hallel is part of the mitzvah of Yigatul V'Nichan B'Deraisa. The Chinuch does this even stronger. I couldn't find a minchas Chinuch upstairs. But when he says, what is the mitzvah of Sipur Yisrael? It's to say the story and to say Hallel to the Rebbeinu Shalom. What does that have to do with Yigatul V'Nichan, saying over the story, saying Hallel? Elamai, the idea is because we say, what do we say right before we say Hallel? The Chol Dor V'Der Chai V'Adam Liris Asatz G'Ulatz Mitzrayim. You have to see. Or the Rambam's Lashon is Laharis. You have to show things as if you're going out. What does a person do when they get out? They spontaneously say Hallel V'Odah to Rebbeinu Shalom. If you got out of jail miraculously, if you were saved from Mitzrayim, you would say Hallel V'Odah immediately to Rebbeinu Shalom. It's the first thing you do. So if you're experiencing it, Midiraisa, as part of the mitzvah of Sipur Yisrael, you have to say Hallel. So we say Hallel until the end of B'Tzeis Yisrael and Mitzrayim. Midiraisa, we have to do that. It's part of Haggadah, and that's how we can do it in the middle of this Kiddush of Haggadah. We can do Hallel because it is part of the mitzvah of Sipur Yisrael. We save the rest for later. That's for after. Ben Sham, we talked about that Barichos last year. Ayin Sham, we save the rest. We save the rest for later. But then you go through the rest of the night. You remember part of what we say about the Shemoneh Seder is everything you do tonight is part of your avodah. That's the netziv again. Your eating is part of your avodah. You're there in the Beis Hamikdash. You're eating a carbon Pesach. You're doing avodah, and we end with Nirtza. What is Nirtza? Nirtza is basically the L'kai Netzur of the Seder. The same way you finish the Shemona Esrei to the L'kai Netzur, you ask the Rebbeinu Shalom, accept my tefillah. That's what we do in Niltza. We say Chasal to the Pesach of the So it's a L'kai Netzur. Avodah finished with Hallel. At that point, yeah, if women want to go to sleep, they can go to sleep. I mean, they should just say Chasal to the Pesach. They could. That's good. You're crushing it. But Hallel is really when the Shemona Esrei finishes, Hallel is Sim Shalom. The Shemona Esrei is finished at the end of Hallel. But El Kai Netzur is the Nirtzas. When you ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, be Makabel our Avodah, the whole thing from Orchatz through Karpas through Shulchan Aruch, everything we do is part of Avodah. We ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to accept the Avodah, and we say L'Shana Haba, B'Yushalayim, Habnuya, and Mitzvah Hashem, we should see it in Amen.
Chayos.